Hi guys, Kim here. Solar eclipse on the 30th of April and the music of the luminaries. So I just wanted to talk to you about Greek mythology for a moment and how this subject relates to this solar eclipse. This is about joining the dots towards understanding the bigger picture. So I always find Greek mythology fascinating, how they developed these stories based on the alignments or positions of stars in the sky, so we could have an understanding of how we could be influenced through the forces of the luminaries. I have for the longest time perceived the luminaries as songs, and that our souls hear them in the form of tones, and this is what's meant by the word universe, one song, that all those tones singing together out loudly, influencing us eternally to become the best versions of ourselves as we blindly go on with our lives without the awareness of this. The idea that we are being influenced eternally to bring about the awareness of the awakening that we need to have in order for us to be able to do whatever it is we as individuals came here to do, and that the idea that these stories can assist us in comprehending how this relates to us. We can hear the tones all of the time. We may not be aware of them, but if you stop and listen for a moment, you'll hear the tones. Some of them might call it tinnitus, but to me they're music. And sometimes I just sit here and listen to the spectrum and become aware that it's not a tone, but it's actually singing to me. The solar eclipse on the 30th of April, to me, feels like a turning point. It's an opportunity for us to face our fears, maybe for us to look at how fear has led us to make decisions. It's all based upon the area of the sky that the solar eclipse is occurring, and the mythical story of this eclipse occurring between the constellations of Aries and Taurus, and near the constellations of Cetus and Perseus from Greek mythology. So it's symbolically representing the idea that we are afraid of death, and that we're willing to do anything to avoid it. This may be a time where we need to look at the ramifications of that fear and what we've learned from facing that fear. Or maybe be given once again the opportunity to face that fear and see if we still feel the same way about the choices that we've made, given how far down the road that we may have travelled. Essentially, I've heard a great deal of good stuff about this solar eclipse, and that it's the forebearer of happier times and the beginning of the return of laughter into our lives. So let's hope so, eh? One of the things about the sixth sun, as the fifth sun loses its power, it reminds me of the thing that Ian Lungold used to talk about with the two trains heading for one another on the one track, one called power and the other called ethics, and that these two trains would come to collide head-on, and one would be derailed and it would leave the other surging on. So the power train has to be denser than the ethical train, and therefore it would be the power train that would be derailed, leaving mankind with consciousness centered around ethics. Imagine the effect that would have on our humanity, a time where we consciously thought about the ramifications of an action prior to taking it, and decided if we should take the said action or not. It could also mean being the type of person who leads by example without the need of others' opinions. So there's a lovely video done by Heather Ensworth that I'll link below. She explains the power of this eclipse in detail. It's 30 minutes long. Just briefly, she talks about the solar eclipse and about us coming into our own and remembering who we are and how this eclipse is going to help us do this. Thanks for listening. Ta-da.